This is Season 2 of the Brew and Ink podcast. All right, and welcome everyone, faithful listeners, back to another Brew and Ink podcast. And happy holidays to everyone. We hope you had a happy Thanksgiving. And now we're going into the Christmas season, the most wonderful time of the year. We are here with Bill, Katie, Britt, Evie, and Steven.
Are you sure your name is Steven?
No, I almost said something else. I
heard
was going to say Stevie to rhyme with E, and I was like, no, that's just going to sound weird, and let's not do it. And tonight we're going to wrap up our Flash Fiction competition with these last two finalist stories.
Fight.
Yeah. And we had some good genres to go with. We had fan fiction for Katie, and we had urban fantasy, for Evie. And quite an interesting topic, too, which is, I think, what they were telling me before we started rolling was, will you ever shut up so we can get this started?
Yeah.
We are going to talk about our favorite Christmas stories or Christmas movies, or even if you guys want to throw out a Christmas tradition. You know, we'd love to talk about anything like that. So, we're going to jump right into that. Bill, would you like to go first?
Oh, I don't know. This is unfair. I'm going to ruin it for all of you guys. No, my favorite, absolute favorite, and I go straight to Christmas movies, because at Christmas time I don't have time to read books. Everybody wants to watch a movie, so I hang out with family, we watch Christmas movies. Of course I love A Wonderful Life. Everybody loves that, and I'm going to leave that to somebody else to say that's their favorite.
That was my mom's favorite, yeah.
Favorite of all time is Bill Murray's
Scrooged. Yes.
Great. Scrooged. And it's just, there's probably 5 or 10 minutes of that movie in the middle with Carol Kane.
She's amazing.
She's so funny and just kicking him upside the head and whacking him with things, and just and I don't think any of it was scripted. I don't think they could have scripted that. She just pummeled him through that whole section of the movie, and it was hilarious. It was one of the best portions of any movie. Of course, that I like Bill Murray and as an actor. He's pretty good most of the time, unless he just doesn't want to be in the movie.
And you can tell.
You can tell.
Yeah.
But in Scrooged, oh man, that was amazing. It's still my favorite.
Yeah, it was quite classic.
Yeah.
It definitely stuck with me. Katie, what about you? You have a favorite holiday movie, holiday book?
Holiday book. It's not a Christmas book, but a holiday book would be Hogfather by Terry Pratchett. It's about as Christmassy as you're getting, I think, with him, but it's a lot of fun and thoughtful in its own way. For a movie, I really enjoyed, and when I say this, last time I saw this movie, I was maybe 15, so a long time ago. My favorite Christmas movie is the 2000 animated The Life and Times of Santa Claus, because it's basically got nothing to do with Christmas, and it's Santa Claus as a young man being raised by a talking lioness and fairies, and he fights golems and stuff, and it's awesome.
That sounds
And
awesome.
maybe the last 5 or 10 minutes, he's got a beard and wears a red coat, but it's basically
That's
not about
about it.
that. Yeah. It's based on the book by Frank Baum in the Oz series.
Wow.
Yeah, which I've never read. There's also a claymation version from '85, but I've never seen that one either. But other than that, I'm basically allergic to Christmas movies. So.
What?
Yeah.
I thought you tuned into Hallmark and just
Just watch them all.
just watched.
We need to hang out more.
Well, it's funny. Some of those old classic Christmas movies, you put them in and you're like, wow, these characters were kind of mean. Like, they're really just laying into this character here. My wife's like, I don't want to watch this movie anymore.
Yeah.
What about you?
Well, I'm gonna say one. I like a lot of Christmas movies. We are a Christmas movie household, so we do all the classics.
Yeah.
And the kids love them, and we love them. But there's one that my family and I used to watch when I was a kid, and I've tried to pass this on to my children, but I might have to buy the DVD because it doesn't exist on streaming. And that was Ernest Saves Christmas.
Oh, yes. I haven't seen that in years.
Ernest Saves Christmas. Number one,
Okay.
the Ernest Goes to Camp was we watched that one all the time too.
Ernest Scared Stupid.
Well, we
Another
didn't
good
see.
one.
We weren't as into some of those other ones, but we would watch Ernest Saves Christmas
Yeah.
every year, and it's really not that good. I mean, it's really
It's
not.
an Ernest movie.
It's an Ernest movie,
Wow.
and but really like the Santa Claus with what's his name from Home Improvement.
Tim Allen.
Yeah, Tim Allen. Kind of took the idea of this passing on the Santa Claus.
Right.
Like, it was really Ernest Saves Christmas was the first one that I remember that kind of had that idea that it would kind of get passed on from person to person. It's not that bad, but it just, now as an adult you look back and go, it's kind of, but
Yeah.
it's just but that's one I'm going to talk about as being one that probably a lot of people don't know or haven't seen because it's pretty obscure now. Mm-hmm. But for the time period, we loved that.
I'm
movie.
pretty sure I have a copy of it on VHS somewhere, hidden somewhere in storage.
I think we do too. I think my parents do too, but it's buried in a basement or something somewhere.
Classic. What about you, Evie?
My favorite book is The Best Christmas Pageant Ever. The Best Christmas Pageant Ever is the best book ever. And we read it to our kids every single year. It's super short, but it's super funny. And they love it. But my favorite movie, which we watch every single year, is White Christmas with Bing Crosby and Danny Kaye.
Danny Kaye.
Yes, because it is fantastic. The story is great. It actually, it's a great plot. But the music at the end, obviously, is fantastic.
The music through the whole thing is really pretty good.
It really
It really
is. But it's fun because we drag people into that tradition. Like,
Yeah.
as people show up at our house, we're like, "Hey, White Christmas," for like the 100th time.
Snow.
Can I mention my second really favorite?
Absolutely.
Go
Christmas
for
movie?
it.
Die Hard.
Yes.
I was going to say Die Hard, but that's a lot of people's favorite.
There's another one that can count as a Christmas music, and that's Hook. Because when the children get stolen,
yeah.
it's Christmas time. Yeah.
Good call.
And that's another one that you can slip in there when you're running out, when you've gone through all the other ones, and you still
you
have
go.
2 more weeks. But
2 Christmas movies I'm not allergic to.
yeah, there you go.
Did you know that It's a Wonderful Life was never meant to be a Christmas movie?
Nope.
Right.
That was
It
not.
was
Do you know
released
why
in
it
June
became such a Christmas classic? Why they played it over and over again?
Because it was cheap.
flopped.
Well, no, because it ended up falling outside of the protected rights, so it was just like free to
Oh,
use.
that's right. It was.
So they could just play it
That's
on,
true. I
on
remember
TV. Yeah.
Yeah.
So does it have anything to do with Christmas?
Yeah. The
I-
story
clearly I've
starts
never
and
seen this.
ends kind of around Christmas, but
Okay.
it was
Yeah.
released in June.
Huh.
So it was never meant to.
But because it was aired every year
Yeah,
around
yeah.
Christmas.
But it was also a flop. Like
Yes.
one of the reasons
Yeah.
why the rights went back
Yeah.
to whatever, ran out, is because it was a flop.
Yeah.
Total flop.
Interesting.
Yep. And to go back to last week's topic, I watched a movie this past week called Holiday Inn, and I did not like that movie at all.
Really?
I was like, I didn't even make it through it all the way.
One of
It
my
was
favorites.
it was one of those over the top love triangle thing. Like
Oh,
the setup at the
absolutely.
beginning was like, you're like, oh man, that sucks for that guy, and then like she leaves him, and then they come back, and there's another like replay of that. I mean, it was a great foreshadowing,
Yeah,
but
I was about to say that's the prequel to
Yeah.
White Christmas.
Oh,
it
is
was
that the-
actually created first, and then from that White Christmas was born.
Because White Christmas,
Yeah.
Holiday Inn was the first time White Christmas was sung,
okay.
Exactly.
and then it became a huge hit, and they just
Yeah.
made a movie.
Yeah. So anyway, that's not mine, and that was just
It's okay.
I had to, you know. But I have 2, and one would be Elf, and that's more recent, and every year we watch it at least 2 or 3 times.
Oh yeah, us too. We've already watched it once.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen again.
Yep. And then the other one, you have to find the right version, but the Muppets Christmas Carol
Muppets
Oh, no.
Christmas
with
Carol.
the song still in it about the love is gone. If you get it on DVD or Blu-ray, that song has been cut out of the movie
Why?
because they felt like it would make the narrative go faster and that kids would stay connected with it more. But that is like the pivotal song of like why Scrooge turns out to be the way he is, and they sing it in a reprise at the end of the movie anyways. So like taking that out of the movie just deflates the best part of the movie. I'm still trying to find a digital version of that because I have it on VHS, but I don't have a VHS player that I'm using anymore. Nope. And then the DVD that I bought said it came with the song in it, and it wasn't the right version. So Amazon reviewers, I'm coming for you, right? Give me the truth. But yeah, that movie, we watch that one every year. It's great, and I love it. It's funny. It's got great songs in it. And it's just, Michael Caine as Scrooge does a great job.
Amazing.
And then Gonzo as the narrator with the rat Rizzo. Classic.
I'm really surprised no one said A Nightmare Before Christmas.
Well, see, that one's
Still not my favorite.
tough. I feel like you have to start that one at Halloween and then kind of watch a little more during Thanksgiving and then wrap it up at Christmas.
But
it's not a Halloween movie and it's not a Christmas movie.
No,
What did you say?
It's so dumb.
It is.
I watched it for the first time the other year after hearing everybody rave about it. I expected more, but it's Tim Burton, so...
Well, yeah.
Part of the course.
What made it so good was the technology back then, the animation back then and everything.
Okay.
Yeah, and then
It's
Tim
a
Burton.
combination of things. I mean, it was that, and it was
the music.
Well, the music, and it was also the Tim Burton kind of being goofy and dark around Christmas, right?
Yeah.
He kind of taking that kind of darker turn. But, in our house, there's a big list. There's Christmas Story, Charlie Brown's Christmas.
Yeah, watch that already.
The original How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
The animated one, yeah.
There's a whole big list of what we watch. And
yeah, my house, I have to be very careful because if my wife says, let's watch a Christmas movie, I have to ask her which one to make sure it's not one of the Hallmark movies.
Yeah.
That doesn't count.
Yeah, maybe that should have been one of our genres, Hallmark Christmas movie.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, my word.
Because that would have been really easy, young woman in the busy rat race of life has to somehow is stuck in a small town with a rugged male stranger who shows her the real meaning of
And
love.
there's a dog, a child, and an ex-lover.
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you. I was just about to say, don't forget the ex-lover.
I recently read a really interesting article about the Hallmark movie formula.
Really?
Yeah.
And that was it?
It is exactly the same story
Every
again
time.
and
Every time.
again. And you
And-
gotta watch them.
And I saw something the other day that said Aliens is basically the same plot of a Hallmark movie. Because she comes into a situation and there's the girl and there's the guy and they, she has to fight, learn how to fight for love.
Who does the android, what role does he take?
I don't remember.
Is he the
They
dog?
don't think they said anything
or
to
the
android. The goofy best friend who, always has the right wisdom for the situation.
Bad.
And so with that, we're going to transition into our stories. So without further ado, we will start with you.
Brew and Ink is now syndicated on SeriousWriter.com. See them at SeriousWriter.com for resources, articles, videos, topical classes, and now a podcast, the Brew and Ink Podcast, because we're syndicated on SeriousWriter.com.
And now we'll have Evie with Will You Ever Shut Up and Urban Fantasy.
Come on, Bree, it's time to go. The pitter-patter feet of a little 6-year-old girl flip-flop down the concrete steps out of her San Francisco painted lady home. She waited patiently at the bottom of the steps as Daddy locked the door behind them. Look, Daddy, there's Mr. Cochran. This was the name she had given to the friendly old gnome that walked almost daily from Mrs. Jenny's to the park across the street. He was always dressed in the same red robe and always with his same gray pointed hood, only his big red nose and long white beard visible. Suddenly, old Mr. Cochran lifted his hood, threw his beard over his shoulder, girded his loins, and bolted down the street. Oh no, Daddy, look! Mr. Edgar's 3-headed dog got loose and is chasing Mr. Cochran. Yes, Bree. That's nice. Breland's daddy patted her head and took her hand in his. Come on, dear. We have a train to catch. But Daddy, come on, Bree. He pulled Bree along as she looked behind her to see the outcome of poor old Mr. Cochrane. He slipped into Mrs. Jenny's basement window just in time. Breland sighed deep with relief. Mr. Cochrane got away, Daddy. Good, dear, Daddy said, patting her on the head again. They reached the trolley stop with time to spare. There, Breland shouted good morning to the wood nymph who lived at the park. She was the nymph of a birch tree. Breland thought she had beautiful pale skin and loved watching her long white hair flutter in the wind. The nymph reached out her long branch-like fingered hands and waved in a long, slow arch back at Breland. Have a fantastic day, Lady Nymph, Breland hollered over the rat-tat-tat of the trolley. Shh, Bree. Careful getting on the trolley. Yes, Daddy, Breland obeyed. The lady that got on right behind them huffed disapprovingly as she shook her head at little Breland's behavior. Look at the fairies, Daddy, she said, pointing at the hundreds of fluttering blue and pink fairies that raced alongside the streetcar. Yes, dear, replied Daddy, not looking up from his phone in his lap. The woman who so disapproved huffed once more, but a tall woman with long black hair and 3 little boys with her smiled warmly at Bree. The next stop, the kind woman got up and hustled her boys off the trolley. She swept her hair behind her pointy ears and smiled back at Breland before hopping off. Breland beamed at the beautiful elfin. The next stop is ours. Yes, Daddy, she said, gathering up her little backpack. They hopped off the trolley, and Daddy tugged her along quickly toward the subway station. Breland hated the subway station. They would have to go down a dark tunnel to get to the platform. Breland froze. Her fingers slipped from Daddy's hand. She remained glued to the spot, her body shivering at the sound of the icy, shrill scream of a banshee. Breland, come on! We'll miss the train. Daddy, I'm scared. Enough of this nonsense, Bree. There is nothing to be afraid of. But, Daddy, the banshees and the werewolves. Breland Fox, you stop this fantasy nonsense right now and get moving. A tear streamed down her cheek as she shuffled her heavy feet down the dark corridor. She grasped on tight to her daddy's sleeve and walked as close as she could to him. The banshee's skin, though pale, was not beautiful like that of the nymph. She was sickly looking, and her cold black eyes stared into Breland's soul as she gave off her horrid cry. A werewolf stepped out of the dark shadow and stalked its prey, its red gleaming eyes never leaving the back of Breland's neck. It pounced. Bree let out a shriek and cowered. A giant wing flapped over her head, and a long golden talon clawed the werewolf. It slid across the concrete, leaving a trail of blood. Then, whimpering, it slinked back into the shadows. Breland, will you ever shut up? Now stop this tomfoolery and come on. Daddy was angry. Breland dare not say anything about the dragon that had just saved their life. She better not say another word, so she simply curtsied and mouthed thank you to the beast, then ran to catch up with Daddy at the end of the tunnel. Breland and Daddy hopped on the train and found a seat for their long ride. She pulled out of her backpack a pen and pad and began drawing silently. Breland drew the wild griffin being restrained by 2 elves on the platform they had passed. Then she drew the centaur that had gotten on the train 2 stops back, and last she drew the most beautiful dryad that she ever had the privilege of sitting across from. She drew her long, slender body and her beautiful flowing blossom dress, and her stunning curly chestnut-colored hair. She so wished she had brought colored pencils to do her emerald green eyes justice. This is our stop, dear, Daddy said gently, now in remorse for his harsh tone. Bree gathered up her backpack, and Daddy gathered up her pen and pad. As they hopped off the train, Daddy looked down at the drawing, where he laid eyes on the most majestic creature he could have ever imagined. He looked at Breland and then up at the train, through the window to where they had been sitting. There in the window sat the most majestic creature he had ever seen, a dryad staring at them, waving gracefully her long branch-like fingers. He swooped his little girl into his arms as he looked all around at a new world he had never seen before.
And next, we will have Katie with her version of Will You Ever Shut Up, a fan fiction.
Now, before I begin, I must preface this with I'm a very casual reader of My Hero Academia, and I last saw an episode maybe 4 months ago. So, for those uninitiated, My Hero Academia is a Japanese animation about a group of high school kids who are attending an elite high school for superpowered people to learn how to become heroes. And in this world, just about everyone has a superpower called a quirk. And recently there's been a string of attacks by this nefarious League of Villains. And so the story takes place toward the end of season 3. So spoilers for anybody who hasn't got that way, but small ones, I think. And there we have it.
And the whole name, My Hero Academia, comes from the main character. Deku is someone that was born without a quirk. And so he was just obsessed with heroes. And so he studied all the heroes and he wrote these journals that like talked about their weaknesses and how they attack and had all these details about. So then when he finally comes into his own in some way that I won't spoil, he's not only, able to use a quirk, but then also he's ahead of everyone else and the aspect that he just knows everyone's abilities inside and out. So it's My Hero Academia.
Interesting.
So, any fans, please forgive me for canonical mistakes and mispronunciations. Thank you. Will you ever shut up? A My Hero Academia fanfiction. Dear Deku, I just wanted to say that I, Otaku Uraraka, Class 1A at UA High, quirk, 0 gravity, scowled and crossed the line out. Dear sounded too personal, and she didn't want Deku. Real name, Izuku Midoriya, Class 1A, quirk, 1 for all, to get any ideas. Not that she didn't really want him to get any ideas. He had lots, and that wasn't the problem, but just not any ideas about her, and that was a problem, and she tapped her pen against her chin, brow furrowing for a moment longer as her cheeks warmed with a blush. Deku, she began again. I wanted to let you know that... Uraraka paused. Was just Deku all right? It seemed a little abrupt, but Midoriya seemed too formal and his full name was even more worse and... No. Deku was fine. She was overthinking this. Deep breath, new paper, once more. I just wanted you to know that I think you're doing great, especially after the attack in Kamino Ward. I don't know if it's proper to tell you this, but you really were brave to rescue Bakugo. Uraraka hadn't wanted Deku and the others to go. It was against the law, with dire consequences, especially after the Hosu City attack. Students weren't supposed to use their quirks outside of the school. Deku knew that. Besides, Bakugo was proud. Quirk, explosion. And he hated Deku. That he had been kidnapped by the League of Villains was sure to leave a better taste in his mouth, but to be rescued by Deku was worse. She had told Todoroki and Kirishima so. Quirks, half hot, half cold, and hardening, respectively. And she was right, but still. Bakugo was angry, but safe, and there were dire consequences, not just for the students, but also for All Might. But Deku had been brave. What you did was heroic, she wrote. And unlawful and stupid, Uraraka wanted to say, but as someone who, too, wanted so badly to be a hero, to live heroically, she couldn't ignore why Deku had done what he had done. To have stayed behind and let the pro-heroes do the saving would have been right, but it wouldn't have been Deku. Deku, who had strived so hard to get into UA, who had sacrificed so much to excel, who only wanted to be a hero like All Might. To have stayed behind and let someone else rescue his friend would have been cowardly in his mind. Despite her frustration with him, Uraraka couldn't deny him that. For what it's worth, I'm glad you went. I can see you're really getting better at handling your quirk, and I know it's been hard, but I think you're going to be better than all of us at the end. Uraraka paused again, but she wasn't going to scratch out her words. Deku had gone home safe, with no more broken limbs, with a new reliance on strategy and teamwork that he hadn't displayed before. If Uraraka were a betting girl, she'd bet that the night in Kamino Ward was a turning point for him. A realization that he couldn't keep being so reckless, and that he had friends and allies he could count on. She hoped that he could come to count on her someday, And though the color rose in her cheeks again, she meant that too. Uraraka was a very small fish in a pond inhabited by future heroes of unimaginable power and skill, but she was useful, and if she could be of any help at all to Deku, she would be there. It's what heroes did, but more, it's what friends did. Next time, maybe, she'd have the courage to go too. She stared at her words on the paper, tapping her pen still before growling in frustration and crumpling the paper up. Oh, what was the point, she thought, as she brushed the paper into the waste bin. Her head dropped to the table and she lay there for a minute, thinking, pouting, really not that she'd admit it. She'd never give him the letter, or any of the others she had written over the last few months. They all went into the trash anyway. They were all too personal or too blunt or too something, and Deku had a lot on his plate anyway, and she'd have time later. The new school semester started with a visit from Mr. Aizawa and an announcement of the new dormitories, required housing. She would smile at Deku and say hello, but the things she'd noticed and wanted to say would go unspoken for now. Sometimes she thought too much, the way he mumbled too much, and maybe they both needed to learn to be quiet.
Awesome. So that about wraps up this episode. Remember to go and visit the Instagram page, the Facebook page, the website where you can get the written version of the episode and a link to listen to the episode, as well as a link to vote on which of these two stories is going to take the grand final winner
Of all. The
trophy.
championship.
Maybe we'll spray paint a macaroni trophy.
Nice. I think
They have to be really small though.
I think
You know.
I think Liam should make a trophy.
Okay,
That's what I think.
Yes.
My 5-year-old will make a trophy for the winner, so look forward to that.
We've got a gold beer can here.
She's a Sharpie to write
I
some
don't like
stuff on it.
IPAs though.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
No, they do.
So go out there and vote, please. Put your votes in on these ladies' stories. They were both entertaining,
They're
and
great.
they deserve your listen, and they deserve your vote. So thank you guys for your time. Thank you, as always, for being faithful listeners. And remember, over this holiday season, make sure to raise that glass to inspiration.
So I really don't like the Voodoo Rangers, which was a disappointment because I love the art on the can.
Oh, I know, right?
And if I could get a t-shirt with that skull on it, I totally would.
And they changed the outfit depending on which one you're drinking, too.
Yeah.
Nice.
Do you know that?
Yeah, it was big. Yeah.
It's based on a contract by
NBC or
Mr.
whoever
T.
it was.
No, Mr. T.
Oh, Mr. T?
Mr. T signed a contract that absolutely no one can die except for one single character.
Wow, I had
No
no
blood,
idea.
no guts, no nothing. You'll see a helicopter go flying down and go, blow up, and then 2 people will crawl out.
Treat her right. Treat your mother right.
Drink your milk,
Heavily.
don't do drugs. Stay in school.
I pity the fool.
Because I've got some interesting hobbies and opinions, but not about books.
Sasquatches.
Sasquatches,
Hey.
roadkill.
They probably come out more in the winter, don't they?
Roadkill?
Sasquatch.
Winter is the ideal time to skip roadkill because it's not going to rot as fast.
Oh, yeah.
'cause temperatures aren't as high.
It's good to know.
You should do your own podcast on like roadkill.
Yeah, how did the beaver go?
The otter?
Or the otter, yeah, how did the otter go? Same thing, right? One has teeth. And one...
They,
The platypus.
It's a platypus.
Was it a platypus?
they're very different, but oddly fairly similar in how they skin out. It was difficult, and if we have time to read my story that I talked about, I will tell you about the otter.
Gotcha. Yes,
Next Monday.
we ought to do it.
Oh, wow.
Sounds good.
I
Young
totally got that
man,
out of
you
your story.
too can be a hero.